And a very good morning to you on 4CRB. It is Law and You time, and we would like to welcome, as always, on the phone this morning, John Fradgley from the Bell Legal Group, and the number to call 55208888. Good morning, John.
Yeah, good morning, Steve, and good morning, everybody. Great to be back with you for another program of the Law and You, which means it must be Tuesday morning.
Yes.
As always, it's your opportunity to get free legal advice between now and 9:30. All we'd like you to do is get on that telephone as soon as you possibly can. As Steve said, our number is 55208888. That number again, 55208888. Please don't leave your calls to the last 5 or 10 minutes of the program like we had last week, where we get a bank up of calls and then we're unable to take those calls online. We would much rather deal with your calls online so that we can not only answer your query, but hopefully answer the same query that might be in the mind of someone else out there who's listening but unable to get to the telephone. So 55208888. Of course, if you're south of the Tweed River, you need to put 07 in front of that number. And Steve, if you just interrupt me, if we get any callers online,
Yep, will do.
that would be useful. Just recapping in relation to last week's program, because we had two or three calls that came in after the program closed. In fact, from memory, I think it was 3, but when I tried to ring back, only 2 of those people answered. So one of them, Bill, was basically inquiring about how you enforce a judgment that you may obtain in the magistrate's court against someone. So as you will undoubtedly know, whether you sue someone in the small debts court through QCAT or through the magistrate's court or indeed any of the higher courts, once you get the judgment, that does not automatically mean that you're going to receive your payment. And quite often it is necessary to take further action in order to enforce that judgment. So if you have judgment in the magistrate's court, the district or the Supreme Court, there are processes laid down there by which you can enforce the judgment, such as the registration of a warrant of execution over property, over real estate that is owned by the defendant. Now, that is a process whereby the warrant is registered on the title, and then from there, it is up to the bailiff of the court to enforce that judgment in accordance with the warrant that's been placed upon the property. In the Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal, and indeed I believe in New South Wales in their equivalent of QCAT, it is a little bit more complicated to enforce a judgment because once you get judgment in that jurisdiction, you then need to take any enforcement proceedings in the magistrate's court. One of the other things that you can do is apply, if you've obtained judgment in the magistrate's court or any of the superior courts, is for an oral examination of the defendant. And that would mean that the defendant is brought before the court, is placed on oath, and is required to give evidence to the court of what their assets and liabilities are, what their income is, so that the court can determine and the plaintiff can determine the best way that the judgment can be enforced.
We do have we've got a few callers lined up for you now, John.
Okay then, Steve.
So we'll start with Donna.
Donna, good morning, Donna. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. I just have a quick question for John.
Sure.
Is it possible, John? Is it possible, John, to change the executor on your will just by the person owning the will crossing it out and putting a new name in and initialing it?
Donna, it's not recommended because it will create additional problems when you go to apply for probate of the will or indeed to deal with any assets under the will because the crossing out of the name of the executor and then the insertion of the new name needs to be initialed by not only the testator, but it also needs to be initialed by 2 independent witnesses. And then when you apply for probate, you will need an affidavit of plight and condition, which declares to the court how that change occurred, the date on which the change occurred. I would strongly recommend that instead of doing that, it is quite simple to do a codicil to a will, which is just a very short document which would say that I remove Joe Brown as my executor, and in lieu thereof I insert Mary Smith, and that's signed off. And then when your will is admitted to probate, it would be the will together with the codicil that are admitted, and there's no need for affidavits of plight and condition or any other of the potential problems that might arise. So I believe firmly that it is best to have those sorts of issues dealt with professionally by your lawyer or the public trustee.
Okay, thank you very much, John. That clears that up. Thank you.
All the very best.
Thank you.
Time on 4CRB marches along, and it is presently 11 minutes past 9. And Steve, we've got some more callers there.
Yeah, next caller is Derek.
Derek, good morning, Derek. How are you today?
Well, thanks, and yourself?
Very well indeed. Thanks. How can I help you today?
My daughter has a problem that next door they put roof panels on the roof, and it's when the sun comes up at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's like a searchlight in her kitchen and family room. It's impossible to stay in the room. You've got to draw the blinds. Now, drawing the blinds spoils their whole view of a garden that they set up. I was wondering, is there anything the law can do about that?
Derek, I don't think it's going to be an easy problem to deal with. The only thing that I could recommend, or the couple of things that I would recommend would be, is it in the Gold Coast?
Yes.
Okay, well, I would suggest the first thing to do would be to speak to the council in relation to it, because this is solar panels that have been put on the roof, is it?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and they're reflecting. So the first thing I would be doing is speaking to the council in relation to it, because the installation of the solar panels is an alteration to the construction of the property. And then the second thing that you may be able to do in relation to it would be to speak to the Department of Justice and speak to them in relation to the neighbourhood. There is what's called the Neighbourhood Dispute Resolution Act, which provides a means by which these sorts of problems between neighbours can be dealt with. So you could, she could give them a call. Do you want their number?
Thank you very much.
Okay, so the number for the Department of Justice is 137468. So, or alternatively, 137468.
Mm-hmm.
Alternatively, the Department of Justice, and particularly under the Neighbourhood Dispute Resolution legislation, does have a number of comprehensive information memos that are online. So she could go online and take a look at those and see if there. I've never specifically looked to see if there is anything to deal with the reflection of solar panels, but it may be that there is something there in relation to nuisance being caused by construction. But I think between the council and the Department of Justice, hopefully there should be a solution.
What was the resolution that people have to speak to them about? What was that again?
It's the Neighbourhood Dispute Resolution Act. So it's legislation that deals with a whole range of things, from fencing disputes to trees over the fence, all those sorts of things between neighbours. So that may be helpful, and the other one would be as I say, the council. The one thing that just goes through my mind is a practical solution. Has she spoken to the neighbours about it?
Oh, they were on good terms, but it's the same thing. If it costs them money, they're not interested.
How unusual. Yes, so, I mean, the problem, of course, is that you can't put a reflective film over the solar panels because if it doesn't allow the solar rays to get through, it's going to defeat the purpose of the solar heating.
Yeah.
So it is a problem. I do know that we have a similar problem at our home early in the morning, not through solar panels, but purely the very white roof, tin roof that is on the house next door, and it reflects into our bedroom once the sun gets up a bit. So I do know the sort of problem, but unlike you, we don't have a massive picture window there. We just simply pull the blind. But I hope that'll help to some degree.
Yeah, well, it's just like a searchlight in there.
Yes. No, it would be terrible, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, then.
John, I just want to thank you so much for my most honest show you put on. I listen as often as I can.
Thank you very much,
John.
Derek. All the best.
Bye.
I hope that helps. Bye now. And the time on 4CRB continues to roll along. 16 minutes past 9. Steve, how are we going on the board there?
Yeah, we've got Robert up next.
Robert. Okay. Good morning, Robert. How are you today?
Good, thank you. I hope you ring up for a friend. She's a nice lady, she's a widow lady, and she lives on the Gold Coast. She's got a small unit, and I suggested to her, but I don't know the legality of it all. She's on the pension. She goes away to her relatives over Christmas for about 6 weeks, and I suggested maybe she's allowed to rent out a unit and give her some extra money, even though you tell Centrelink and maybe they deduct some. Can she do that?
Well, you're allowed to earn a certain amount per annum.
That's right.
So I would recommend, Robert, that she gives Centrelink a call and just tell them what she's thinking of doing, and they would be able to give a chapter and verse. I think that would be the best idea.
I think if they think, if it's over a year, well, it'll matter. I don't know what you get for one bedroom over Christmas, say 6 weeks or 8 weeks. Say she got 400. That's 3,000. So $3,000 a year probably wouldn't make a lot of difference to her pension.
It may not, but I don't know whether they do it on the basis of annualising it, or they would do it on the basis that she earned that for those weeks. So that's the reason why it should be best to speak to Centrelink in relation to it.
Even if she did it, she'd only lose a portion anyway, wouldn't she?
Well, that's exactly right. She would only lose.
So something's better than nothing. Something's better than nothing.
Well, that's always been my view of life, Robert. That's for sure. So, but above all, she must do it correctly because the last thing you'd want to do is do it and not advise Centrelink, and then have the potential that some other neighbour dobs her into Centrelink, and she has all sorts of problems.
All right. Thanks, John.
Okay, then. All the very best. And the time on 4CRB is just past 18 minutes past 9. The Law and You is the program, 55208888. Our number, if you have a question or a query, please get on that telephone as soon as you possibly can, 55208888. How are we going there, Steve?
Yeah, we've got 2 callers waiting, so our next one is Dana.
Dana. Good morning, hello. Dana. How are you today?
And then, hey, John. I meet Macklin, but I want to ask you, my husband, ex-wife, changed the name of his son to his surname. A long time ago. Do you have the right to claim to my husband in case my husband passed away?
Sorry, Dana, I'm just having a little bit of trouble hearing you. Can you just repeat the question again, please?
My late husband, ex-wife, changed the name of her son to her husband a long time ago in America. Yes,
so what you're saying is that your late husband's ex-wife changed the name.
Yes.
Your husband's ex-wife changed the name of their son to a different surname.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you claim my husband in case he passed away?
Sorry, Dana, I just can't hear you. What I might ask you to do, if you don't mind, is if you could call back to the switchboard at the station and leave your telephone number, and they'll email me through your name and number, and I might give you a call after the program's over, because unfortunately I'm just having a great deal of difficulty hearing and understanding your call.
Okay.
So if that would be okay. So if you call back the switchboard, hang up and call them straight back.
Thank you, bye. Bye.
Bye-bye now. And the time on 4CRB has just turned 21 minutes past 9. And this is The Law and You, and we have another caller there, Steve.
Yes, our next caller is Tom.
Tom.
Yes,
G'day,
hello.
Tom.
Hello, how are you?
Today?
Yeah, I'm
well,
good.
Are you?
I'm sitting in the sun.
Good on
Lovely,
you, Tom.
lovely and warm. Now, just in regards to the solar panels and the sun, I've got the same problem on the house across the street. And when the sun hits it, it is blinding. But 10 minutes and it's gone because the sun shifts.
Yeah.
And I don't complain.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it just depends. It'd depend, I think, how big the window is and how long the sun, how many panels they've got off the roof and how long it reflects off it. So I think there would be a number of variables there that may extend the amount of time. But you're quite right, Tom. I mean, eventually, when the angle of the sun moves, it does then deflect. So if this is early in the morning, it sounds to me as if the solar panels are on the eastern side of the roof and they're reflecting onto the western side of a house next door. So as the sun goes up, you're quite right.
Well, there's 22 panels on this house roof. It's a big 2-story, and it shines in our front bedroom, our kitchen, and our lounge. And it's there for about 10 minutes. 10 minutes at the most. It has gone.
Yeah. All right, that might be the solution.
Yeah, of course it is. You can't. Everybody's got these things. They put them in. You can put them in yourself, and you don't know what effect you have on somebody else.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Let's be, decent about it.
Yep, fair enough.
Okay.
I'll take that as a comment, Tom. Thanks for the call.
Thanks very much.
And the time on 4CRB is 22 minutes past 9. How are we going there on the board, Steve?
Yeah, we've got a couple more callers now. So the next one is Ria.
Ria. Good morning, Ria. How are you today?
Very well, John. Thank you very much for asking. My question is this. We have dual citizenship. I need to know what are implications on the processes regarding our estate when we die.
Well, do you have assets in the other jurisdiction? You have assets in Australia. Do you have assets in the other country where you have dual citizenship?
Nothing at all.
All right, okay. It's not the United States, is it?
No, it's not.
Right, okay, because there are some very tricky situations as between Australia and the United States. If you even if you don't have a US passport, if you're born to US parents, there are potentially some problems with the tax office over there for people who are living and earning income in Australia. So it is a bit of a trap for people that they need to be aware of. If you don't have any assets in that jurisdiction and you live solely in Australia and all of your assets are here, then I suspect that you wouldn't have any problems at all, Ria, because normally your estate is administered according to where your domicile is at the time that you pass away. So if you pass away in Australia, your estate is administered under the laws of Australia. If you're an Australian citizen, as it appears you are. The only thing that I could suggest you do, Ria, would be to perhaps have a look at Google in relation to it to see whether there's anything on Google specific to your dual citizenship and the particular country of which you're a dual citizen in relation to estate administration. But if there is nothing that, or the alternative would be to ring the embassy or the consulate of that particular country, the nearest consulate, and ask them for advice whether there are any issues with you maintaining dual citizenship. But I have to say that with the exception of the United States and with the exception of situations where people have assets still in that other jurisdiction where they maintain citizenship. I've not, over all of my 40-plus years of administering estates, had any issues where there's been a problem of death duties payable in another jurisdiction because of assets that were held in Australia. All right,
Perfect.
then?
That's all the correct answers I wanted to hear. Thank you, John.
Okay, Ria, all the very best. And the time on 4CRB just keeps rolling along. It's 26 minutes past 9. How many calls have we got left there, Steve?
No, well, we did have another one, but they've gone now, so there's none at the moment. We've only got
well, that's
couple
probably
of minutes to go.
fortuitous to
Yes.
some extent, isn't it? It means we're not going to have a problem coming up to the news, which is good. Now, I was talking about the calls that we had last week, and I mentioned about Bill, the other one was someone who was an Italian citizen, and they lost citizenship as a child, and the question was whether they could claim against their ex-husband for a child who's now 49 years of age, and the clear answer to that obviously was no. The other one you may recall was Heather calling about her podiatrist and whether her podiatrist could be her attorney. Now, I had one of the lawyers do some research in my office in relation to that question, and I've since spoken to Heather a couple of times on the phone, at least once. I think she's spoken to the office a couple of times, and unfortunately the answer to her question was based on our review of the Powers of Attorney Act for Queensland, that unfortunately even a podiatrist who's paid to provide health services cannot be an attorney under an enduring power of attorney. So if you're basically a paid healthcare provider, I stress that this does not include people who receive a carer's allowance from Centrelink. It certainly doesn't apply if you're receiving a Centrelink carer's allowance, but if you are a paid healthcare, or if someone is a paid healthcare provider for you, then you are safest not to have them acting as your attorney, because it potentially would be invalid. So that's probably getting us pretty close to the news, I would say, Steve.
Yeah, yep. It's time to wrap it up.
A couple of minutes to go. So I'm John Fradgley from the Bell Legal Group. It's been great to be with you for another program of The Law and You. To the caller who called it towards the end there and wasn't able to stay online, please call back next week. We're always happy to deal with your questions and queries, and every week we look forward to doing so. But until next week, this is John Fradgley saying goodbye and God bless.